Hello, boys and girls. I am now back with you. We're about to read Chapter 3 of my favorite chapter book of all time, the novel Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. I have my glasses on, I'm ready to read, and I hope you are ready to listen. The dog-wanting disease never did leave me altogether. With the new work I was doing, helping Papa, it just kind of burned out itself on its own and left a big sore on my heart. Every time I'd see a coon track down in our fields or along the river banks, the old sore would get all festered up and start hurting again. Just when I had given up all hope of ever owning a good hound, something wonderful happened. The good Lord figured I had hurt enough and it was time to lend a helping hand. It all started one day while I was hoeing corn down in our field close to the river. Across the river, a party of fishermen had camped there for several days. I heard the old Maxwell car as it snorted and chugged its way out of the bottoms. I knew they were leaving. Throwing down my hoe, I ran down to the river and waded across the place called Shannon Ford. I hurried to the campground. It was always a pleasure to prowl where the fishermen had camped. I usually could find things like a fishing line or a forgotten fishing pole. On one occasion I found a beautiful knife stuck in the bark of a sycamore tree, forgotten by a careless fisherman. But on that day I found the greatest of treasures. It was a sportsman's magazine, discarded by the campers. It was a real treasure for a country boy. Because of that magazine, my entire life was changed. I sat down on an old sycamore log and I started thumbing through the pages. On one of the back pages of the magazine, I came to the for sale section. It said dogs for sale. They had every kind of dog. I read on and on. They had dogs I had never heard of, names I couldn't make out. Far down in the right corner I found an ad that took my breath away. In small letters it read, "Registered red-bone coon pups, $25 each." The advertisement was from a kennel in Kentucky. I read it over and over. By the time I had memorized the ad, I was seeing dogs, hearing dogs, and even feeling them. The magazine was forgotten. I was lost in thought. The brain of an 11-year-old boy can dream some fantastic dreams. How wonderful it would be if I could have two of those pups. Every day, every boy in the country but me had a good hound or two, but $50. How could I ever get $50? I knew I couldn't expect help from Mama and Papa. I remembered a passage from the Bible my mother had read to us. God helps those who helps themselves. I thought of those words, and I mulled them over in my mind. I decided I'd ask God to help me. There on the banks of the Illinois River, in the cool shade of the tall white sycamores, I asked God to help me to get two hound pups. It wasn't much of a prayer, but it did come right from the heart. When I left the campground and the fishermen, it was late. As I walked along, I could feel the hard bulge of the magazine jammed deep in the pocket of my overalls. The beautiful silence that follows the setting sun had settled over the river bottoms. The coolness of the rich, black soil felt good to my bare feet. It was the time of the day when all furry things come to life. A big swamp rabbit hopped out on the trail, sat on his haunches, stared at me, and then scampered away. A mother gray squirrel ran out on the limb of a bur oak tree. She barked a warning to the four furry balls standing right behind her. They melted from the sight in the thick green. A silent gray shadow drifted down from the top of the tall sycamores. There was a squeal and a batting of wings. I heard the tinker of the bell in the distance ahead, and I knew that it was Daisy, our milk cow. I'd have to start her on the way home. I took the magazine from my pocket again. I read the ad slowly, and then my plan began to form. I'd save the money. I could sell stuff to the fishermen, crawfish, minnows, and fresh vegetables. And in berry season, I could sell all the berries I could pick at my grandfather's store. I could trap animals in the winter. The more I planned, the more real it became. There was the way to get the pups. I had to save my money. I could almost feel the pups in my hands. I planned the little doghouse and where I was going to put it, the collars I would make to wrap around their necks. And then the thought came, what would I name them? I tried name after name, voicing them all out. None seemed to fit. Well, there would be plenty of time for names. Right now there was something more important. $50, a fabulous sum, a fortune, far more money than I had ever seen. Somehow, some way, I was determined to have it. I had 23 cents, which was a dime I had earned running errands for my grandpa, and 13 cents a fisherman had given me for a can of worms. The next morning I went to the trash pile behind the barn. I was looking for a can to be my bank. Then I saw it. An old KC baking powder can. It was perfect, long and slender with a good tight lid. I took it down to the creek and scrubbed it with sand until it was bright and new looking. I dropped the 23 cents in the can. The coins looked so small lying there on the shiny bottom, but to me it was a good start. With my finger I tried to measure how full it would be with $50 in it. Next I went to the barn and up to the loft. Far back over the hay and up under the eaves I hid my can. I had to start toward making my dreams come true. 23 cents. I had a good bank. It was safe from the rats and from the rain and the snow. All through the summer I worked like a beaver. In the small creek that wormed its way through our fields, I caught crawfish with my bare hands. I trapped minnows with an old screen wire trap I had made for myself, baited with yellow cornbread from my mother's kitchen. These were sold to the fishermen along with fresh vegetables and roasting ears. I tore my way through the blackberry patches until my hands and feet were scratched and raw and red from the thorns. I tramped the hills seeking out huckleberry bushes. My grandfather paid me 10 cents a bucket for my berries. Once Grandpa asked me what I did with the money I earned, I told him. I was saving to buy some hunting dogs. I asked him if he would order them for me when I had saved enough, and he said he would. I asked him not to say anything to my father, and he promised that he wouldn't. I'm sure that Grandpa paid little attention to my plans. That winter I trapped harder than ever with those 3 little animal traps I owned. Grandpa sold my hides to the fur buyers who came to his store all through the first season. Prices were cheap. 15 cents for a large possum hide, 25 for a good skunk hide. Little by little, The nickels and dimes added up. The old KC baking powder can grew heavy. I would heft its weight in the palm of my hand. With a straw I'd measure from the lip of the top of the can to the money. As the months went by, the straws grew shorter and shorter. The next summer I followed the same routine. Would you like to buy some crawfish or minnows? Maybe you'd like some fresh vegetables or roasting ears. The fishermen were wonderful, as true sportsmen are. They seemed to sense the urgency in my voice and always bought my wares. However, many was the time I'd find my vegetables left in their abandoned fishing camp. There never was a set price. Anything they offered was good enough for me. A year passed. I was 12, and I was over the halfway mark. I had $27.46. My spirits soared, and I worked harder than ever. Another year crawled slowly by, and then the great day came. The long, hard grind was over. I had it, my $50. I cried as I counted it over and over. As I set the can back on the shadowy eaves of the barn, it seemed to glow with radiant whiteness that I had never seen before. Perhaps it was all my imagination, I don't know. Lying back in the soft hay, I folded my hands behind my head, closed my eyes, and let my mind wander back over the 2 long years. I thought of the fishermen, the blackberry patches, and the huckleberry hills. I thought of the prayer I said when I asked God to help me get these 2 pups. I knew He had surely helped, for He had given me the heart, courage, and determination. The next morning, with the can jammed in the pocket of my overalls, I flew to the store. As I trotted along, I whistled and I sang. I felt as big as the tallest mountain in the Ozarks. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to stop right there with part 1 of chapter 3, and I will start back in just 1 second.